So in this video, we're going to talk about the basics of tank movement in Wargame Red Dragon. There's a lot to remember because this doesn't just apply to, it mostly applies to tanks. Um, some of the things, some of the individual tactics that you can use mostly apply to tanks, but for the most part, we're just going to mostly focus on tanks here. This is the M1A2 Abrams. It's a super heavy tank. Nothing screams louder than America than this bad boy, except for maybe the A10 Thunderbolt, which literally screams. But this is a super heavy tank. It's got a good frontal armor, 22, which is one of the best in the game. It's got decent side armor at 9, top armor of 4 for heavy, just to show you how stupid this thing is. I'm going to drop a Nighthawk on it, because why not? Watch how strong this tank is. Practically 2 direct hits from basically the highest explosive round in the game, one of the highest, and it's not even at half health. Or it is at half health, but it only takes down half health. That right there, these massive bombs brought it down to that. Aside from that, how do you use a tank? Well, there's a lot of ways to use it. Um, Tanks are usually used for tank-on-tank combat and long-range support for infantry. Um, but we're going to talk about the individual mechanics of how they move more specifically versus the individual tactics that you can employ in combat. To start, you always want your front to be facing the enemy, as for any tank. The reason for this is the frontal armor is where the most armor is going to be. So right now, a lot of times when you bring out a tank onto the field for the first time, it's going to face sometimes in a direction that isn't where the enemy is. So if your enemy is over here, your tank is right here, it's facing this direction for some dumb reason, but the enemy's over here. So the way you fix that is, you got to be quick about this because you don't want it to roll out of the hedge. Quickly right click, watch it turn, and click stop down here on the bottom right once it faces the enemy. And there you go, your tank and its thickest armor is now facing the front of the enemy. That's the most important thing you can do to remember with these tanks, is do that. The other thing to remember is, I have it keybound to G. It's the reverse function. If a tank is taking too much damage, or you just don't want it to be out in the open field, like it could be just sitting out here in the open field, and recon is spotting it, or enemy vehicles are spotting it, or whatever, maybe. Or you just need to pull it out because it's damaged, like this tank, like the tank is right now because the 2 bombs that hit it. I press G, which is the reverse function in the game, that allows it just to back up. The tank back straight up where you order it to instead of putting its front. See, normally, if you just right click to where you want it to, let's say you want it to retreat back here and the enemy's over here, and you right click to this hedge, notice how it's turning like that? Sorry about the cough. See how it turns and exposes its rear and side flank to the enemy that's over here? That's a no-no. A tank shouldn't do that. Although you do risk the speed sometimes from reverse. That's all right. Sometimes it's usually more important that the tank takes a frontal hit than a reverse hit, because its armor in the rear is the weakest. Now, this is a super heavy tank. What about something like, I don't know, this cheap infantry transport vehicle? I'll summon him up over here. I'll show you what I mean. This is a cheap thing. It's got 3 frontal armor, 3 side armor, 1 top armor, 1 back armor, etc. Right? What if this thing's taking damage, or a vehicle similar with very little stats like this? What should I do? Should I reverse it, or should I just right click it to go where you want? Well, it's usually good practice to reverse, um, but because the vehicle's so cheap, I wouldn't even worry about it. Just right click it, or if you have to, press E and fast move it so it can get to a road. This way, the vehicle can get away as fast as it can and have the maximum chance of survivability and get away. But when it comes to heavy tanks, you always want to reverse them. You don't ever want to expose the rear because that'll get them killed. And that's pretty much it. These guys, just when it comes to movement with these guys, always be careful when you put them on fast movement through roads, because if you have a heavy tank going down this road and the enemy's in this forest over here, their ATGMs might see it and pick it off. So be careful when you're making a move. Maybe if you hit right here, So if you have your tank moves here, you order it to move here instead of over here. So it'll stop here, and you have a queued up move to have it, um, rather than move fast to this position here, you just shift right click it here. So while it's moving fast here, it does a normal movement here and drives up here so the ATGMs can't see it. Yeah, that's pretty much it for tanks. And what I just said a second ago about that movement through this road over here can be applied to anything, not just tanks. It can be applied to anti-aircraft guns, infantry transport vehicles, etc., etc. Well, that's pretty much the basics of how tanks move and function like that. Uh, so yeah, see you in the next one then.